Hey, aloha scholars. I hope that you just had the best weekend and that you were able to enjoy the beautiful weather. I know I did. I just got back from a trip to Indy to see some friends, and it was just one of those sunroof open kind of drives. It was so great. Well, I hope things are going well from you. It's always great to hear from you and your correspondence. I hope things are going really well for you down in Madison, and I'm hoping to be able to visit soon. I definitely will let you know when that happens, and it'd be great to see you all. I wanted to make a quick video to introduce you to the capstone project of both this 9 weeks and the course, which is the nutrition portfolio. So, what you'll be doing is identifying a real person. Most of the time, this person is a relative, but it could be a family friend, it could be a friend that you have. If you're having a hard time identifying someone who could serve as a client, let me know and I'll help you out with that. But basically, what you're going to be doing is identifying a real person who has some sort of nutritional goal. Now, oftentimes, this goal is to lose weight. That's certainly what my goal is. And I've been working with a dietitian and a personal trainer myself here at Purdue and taking advantages of some of those resources. And I love this project even more now than I did last year when I rolled it out for the first time after getting to work with some of these folks, because it's such a great project for you guys to explore some things. But at any rate, you guys are going to identify a real person. Oftentimes, this person is trying to lose weight, but maybe they're not. Maybe there's someone in your life who was recently diagnosed with diabetes, either type 1 or type 2, and they need to learn how to eat healthier, or they need to learn how to eat a diet that is less reliant on carbohydrates. Maybe your client is trying to just have a healthier lifestyle. Maybe they don't need to lose weight, but they know that they want to make some changes to their diet or to their lifestyle. So that could be your client. Last year, one of our students had a client who was actually trying to gain weight, and they had to eat 4,000 calories a day. And you might think, wow, how easy of a project could it be? Well, if you know these students, you know that they actually had a really tough time. Trying to help someone eat that many calories in a sustainable way, in a way that's healthy, is also really difficult. Um, Perhaps your client um, wants to, learn about what types of restaurants they can eat out at. Regardless, you know someone who has some sort of nutritional goal, and the purpose of this project is to help them in reaching this goal. Now, first and foremost, it's really important to note that you are not an expert in this field. This is meant to be a class project to give you the opportunity to explore different aspects of nutrition, metabolism, and energy. So you are not expected to be an expert. You're not a dietitian. You do not have a master's degree in dietetics. You do not have a degree in kinesiology. It's okay. But this is an opportunity to explore whether this is a potential career path for you, and also to really genuinely understand and learn what's in our food and how to live a healthy lifestyle. So that's basically the point of the project. You're going to find a real person who has some sort of real goals, and you're going to help them reach whatever goal that is. So the first step is to actually identify a client. Now, you can work either by yourself or with one partner. That's it. No groups on this one other than you and a partner, or you can choose to work alone. Whether you work with a partner or you work alone, the requirements of the project are the same. So working with a partner is really going to save you some time and effort, assuming that you pick a good one. So that's completely up to you. You can work with someone in a different section of the course. If you're in fifth period, you're welcome to work with someone in sixth period. So make sure, though, that you understand what you're getting into. The first part of this is a client agreement. Oh gosh, I just closed that. Let me pull this back up. Here we go. So the client agreement basically lists the objectives, says that you're going to work independently, develop interview questions, create a 2-week diet. It's really not an exercise plan. If your client is really trying to lose weight and they really want to have an exercise plan as well, you can help them with that. But really, it's most important that you have a diet plan. You can give them some tips for the exercise. Draft a report that basically outlines why you're doing what you're doing and what you're recommending and why it's a good practice, and write a reflection statement. So basically, the client is going to be honest with you. Now, this is a really intimate thing for a client. You're going to have to learn very personal things about your client in order to develop a nutrition plan for them. This is going to include their height, their weight, their basal metabolic rate, any sort of biometric data like cholesterol, whether or not they're on any sort of medications, important aspects of their medical history. And these are things that you might not actually know about your client before interviewing them. So it is vital that you choose a client that you have a good relationship with and that you protect their privacy. So let's say you chose me as your client. Well, if I told you my weight and the fact that I'm on a mild dose of blood pressure medication because I have hypertension, and that I'm working with a trainer, I'm telling you all this in a video, but I wouldn't necessarily want someone running around and advertising this information to anyone else. So it's important that you keep this information confidential. That is a vital aspect of professionalism, and I expect you to uphold that here. Let's see. Your patients may also need to communicate any medications that they're taking. Some of these medications may be personal. You don't really need to get into any sort of mental health types of things. For instance, I have insomnia, and I usually will just take melatonin to help with that. But there are controlled medications like Ambien that someone might take for insomnia. Those types of things you really don't need to know to develop a comprehensive portfolio. But when you ask your clients what sorts of medications they take, they may communicate that with you. So it's really important that you keep that information confidential. The only person that you should be sharing any of that with is you, your partner, your client, and me. I do not need to know who your client is. They are welcome to use a pseudonym. So for example, if you were using me as a client, you could call me, Joe Smith or whatever you wanted to. So talk to your client about that, and you need to communicate these things before moving forward. Now, the other thing that clients do is recognize that this is not medical advice. Now, you're going to be giving your portfolio to them, and you're going to be pouring dozens of hours of work into this. I don't know if you understand just yet how intense of a project this is, but this is a huge undertaking. So hopefully your patients or your clients will take this to heart and recognize that this is a well-researched and well-constructed portfolio that you're giving them. But you are not a practitioner. This should not be taken as advice, and they need to sign this document recognizing that it is not advice. It's just a class project that you developed for them to learn more about nutrition, metabolism, and those sorts of things. So make sure that you get this signed. Oop, there's a typo here. I use this when I teach at Ivy Tech as well. So at any rate, you and your client need to sign this. That, I believe I said, will be due this week, right? On the 14th. So make sure you get that in. All right, so that's the agreement. The next part that you will do is develop interview questions, and you need to have those questions approved before conducting an interview with a client. This is to make sure of two things. One, that you've thought of everything, and two, to make sure that you're on the right track and that you're steering clear of things that could be overly personal or are otherwise unnecessary to the project. The interview is really important. This is where your client is going to communicate their goals, why they want to work with you, or why they might want to work with, a nutritionist. Working with you might spark an interest in working with a dietitian. For instance, at Purdue, my insurance provides dietitian services to employees for free, for just having the insurance, and this might spark an interest in your client actually wanting to take advantage of some sort of service like that at their employer. Okay. Other things that you'll want to know, you definitely need to know their height, their weight, their age, their gender. These are really important things for calculations, and we'll actually be working with Mrs. Machino. She's our district's, she's actually a registered dietitian, and she's our district's wellness coordinator, and she oversees all the cafeterias in the district. She's a wonderful, wonderful person, and she'll be an invaluable resource in this project. You also need to know about your client's likes and dislikes. For instance, I am not technically allergic to peanuts and tree nuts. I have a mild reaction to them, but I hate them. I will not eat foods that have peanuts or any sort of tree nut in them. I won't eat coconuts, almonds, nothing. I know that coconut's not a nut, but I hate it too. I'm actually kind of a picky eater. So you need to know these things before you develop a meal plan for your client. If your client is deathly allergic to nuts, and you recommend that every day they eat a protein bar that has nuts in it, well, that's not going to work for them. So you really need to know what sort of constraints you're working with. Ideally, while your client has some sort of goal, you want to be able to help them reach that goal in a meaningful way, in a way that is going to work for them. You also want to know about things that they like. Maybe your client really enjoys fresh fruits and vegetables, or maybe they really like eating out. Maybe their lifestyle makes them eat out almost every day. Well, one of the things that you could help them do is find heart-healthy, good types of food to eat at fast food restaurants. And believe it or not, those types of things exist. There are actually decent fast food choices out there, and it might surprise you to know that Subway might not be the most healthy fast food restaurant. We'll talk about that at a later time. Not that it's unhealthy, but there are other options. Let's see. So you're going to develop an interview question and have those approved. So you want to learn about just basic biological data about your client, their likes, their dislikes, their lifestyle. The more you know about your client, the better of a project you're going to be able to develop. As you interview your client, you're going to take detailed notes, and you'll actually submit your interview notes as an assignment. Make sure you identify your goals based on the interview and use those to develop a meal plan for your client. Hopefully your client will be able to provide you with feedback. I've removed this as a requirement though. Some clients may not have the time to sit there, and your portfolios are going to be about 20 pages long by the time it's all said and done. So they might not have time to review your portfolio and provide you feedback within the time frame of the project. That's okay. But definitely present them with maybe a few meals and say, hey, what do you think? Is this going to work for you? Again, think about their lifestyle. Instapots are a big thing now, and they really weren't last year when we did this for the first time. So that could be like a lifestyle thing, or crock pots. If I were your client, for example, I'm crazy busy, and if you're going to tell me I have to come home and make a 2-hour dinner every night, I'm not going to be able to uphold that. So you would either need to give me really good advice for eating out, or advice for using a tool that I have at my disposal, like a crock pot or an Instapot, things like that. All right. And by the time it's all said and done, you're going to submit a portfolio that has your signed agreement, interview questions with answers, a 2-week meal plan. You don't have to have an exercise plan unless your client specifically asks for some sort of strategies, and a rationale. The rationale is a lit review. So basically, you need to tell your client in a well-written academic paper about all the things that you did for them in this portfolio. That means you need to describe all of the macronutrients, carbohydrates, proteins, lipids, maybe some of the micronutrients. You need to explain the calculations that led you to get to the numbers that you ultimately used. There's a calculation called the Mifflin-St. Jeor equation, which tells you someone's basal metabolic rate, and then you factor in an activity factor, and you use that information to determine how many calories someone needs. Then you use USDA recommendations to determine how many calories of protein, carbohydrates, and fat that someone should use. And then you develop a meal plan that satisfies those numbers. It's kind of a complicated process. One of the assignments that you'll actually upload are your calculations, just to make sure that you're not on the wrong track before you get too far into the weeds. And I don't think I have that built in here. That is probably going to be April 21st. So I'll put that here. Sunday, April 21st, 2019. That is Easter Sunday. So don't wait until Easter Sunday to determine your calculations. But that will be that. So this is just a list of the agreements, due dates, everything. And here I have attached a rubric for your final portfolio. So here is what you need to do to get started. Number one, identify your client yesterday. If you do not have a client yet, let me know. Or if you do not know who you're going to ask, let me know, and I will try to find someone for you. I could even be your client. That's fine if you need one. So make sure you find a real client and explain to them everything that we talked about in this video to make sure that they're comfortable providing you with the information that you require. So thing number one, identify a client. Then start developing a list of interview questions. So these tasks should only take you, 1 day of classwork, including, watching the video. Then what you really need to start doing is working on your lit review. Your lit review is a huge part of the portfolio. It's worth 20 of the 50 points of the final project. It's really important. So your lit review is going to start with an introduction that actually talks about the project in general, your client, and their goals. Again, feel free to use a pseudonym if you wish, and if your client wishes. You also need to include any specific information from your interview that is going to affect your project. So anything that would impact their metabolism. So if they have a thyroid issue, or if they have dietary constraints, any sort of nutritional constraints, health issues like hypertension, for example, or elevated blood pressure, or hypercholesterolemia, or elevated cholesterol. Then you need to talk about the specific metabolic functions of carbohydrates, proteins, and lipids, including USDA recommendations. Therefore, you need to cite the USDA. The purpose of this is so that you identify what each macromolecule is, how it works in your body, and why your body needs them. You need outstanding scholarly resources. We just kind of went through this a little bit with your annotated bibliographies. I was a little forgiving about what I consider to be scholarly resources. I will not be forgiving here. If you are not using something peer-reviewed or from a legitimate organization, it is not going to count for you. USDA, FDA, CDC, those are types of organizations or peer-reviewed journals that are published, textbooks, those are all fine. But if you're talking about a carbohydrate and you cite Atkins or keto diets, that is completely bad practice. You need to be extremely scholarly in this and be very careful of what organizations you're deriving your information from. All right. Again, you're going to have a draft here, and I'll give you some feedback on it. You'll also be doing some peer review, so your peers can give you some feedback as well. Okay, the reason that you need to do this is because some people might advocate for a keto diet, and there are certain reasons why that might be a good thing. A ketogenic diet is a very low carbohydrate diet, but carbohydrates do important things in your body. In fact, I have a friend who's on the keto diet, and she told me yesterday that she eats 22 grams of carbohydrates a day. Most people would eat close to 300 grams of carbohydrates a day, give or take, well, plus or minus maybe even 100. But, she's eating 1/10 of, what she should be eating in terms of carbohydrates. Is that healthy? Those are types of things that you're going to want to address in a lit review. If your client expresses interest in that sort of lifestyle, be careful. Again, you need to be very cautious of the organizations that you cite here. And the more peer-reviewed research that you can use to support your claim, the better. You also need to put your calculations in the lit review. Don't worry about that now. As you saw, that's coming in a couple weeks, so more information on that now. Basically, what you need to be doing right away is start working on your lit review for carbs, lipids, and proteins, as well as getting USDA recommendations. That would be a great first goal for the week. You don't have to necessarily type it up in a lit review. You could start making an outline, or if you found annotated bibliographies to be helpful, that's a strategy for you, however you want to do it, but start working on your lit review right away. Tanya Machino will talk about the Mifflin St. Jeor calculation with you in person. Don't worry about that right yet. Just know that it's coming, and make sure that your lit review is very well written, has APA citations, closely followed both in text and reference page. You cannot start working on a meal plan yet. In order to work on a meal plan, you need calculations, percentages of carbs, lipids, and fats that you need. So until you have a really good, well-developed lit review, you're not going to be able to make a meal plan. So the meal plan is going to come later. So the more work that you can put in on your lit review now, the better off that you will be. And once you've done everything, you'll write about a one-page reflection. More on that later. This is the final project rubric and where the points come from. This project is worth 40% of your 9 weeks grade. This is the only assignment that goes into the projects category. So up here earlier in the document, I gave you some due dates. All of these basically preliminary documents are classwork assignments. So these will be a lot of your classwork assignments for the 9 weeks. The only assignment going in the project category, which is weighted at 40% of your 9 weeks grade, is your portfolio. It is a huge assignment, and the reason it's weighted so heavily is because it encompasses so much of everything that you're going to be doing, and really throughout the entire school year. Okay, that being said, students do really well on this assignment. I cannot say that it's easy points. You're going to find that you spend, like I said earlier, dozens of hours on this project. So the points do not come easily, but if you do everything and you do it with fidelity, you will do just fine. And that's been most of your experience throughout the course anyway. So keep up the really great work. I'm so proud of the great strides that you're making. I know that a project-based online course is very different from anything that you've experienced, and I know that it can be frustrating. But guys, I'm so proud of you, and I'm so pleased with the work that you're doing. Reading through your annotated bibliographies and your concussion awareness projects from last semester, you guys are doing really incredible work. You're learning how to read and write academically, and the strides that you've made. I remember those initial drafts of your early lit reviews for your concussion projects to where you guys landed, and then seeing what you guys came up with your annotated bibliographies, recognizing that there were other things happening during that time. I'm just so proud of you guys. So keep up the great work, and let me know if you have any questions. So this week, focus on identifying a client, start developing your interview questions, and start working on your lit review. Okay, I will post some PowerPoints for your reference. I want you to take a fresh look at nutrition. Pretend that you don't know anything about nutrition at all when you start researching these types of things. So I hope everything is going well. Let me know if there's anything I can do to help you. Have a great cup day. Bye, friends.